I'm so excited to have joining me right now in the Toyota Solutions studio one of this year's Mother of Invention recipients, Hannah Alexander, who has invented something that I'm going to allow her to speak about, and is the CEO and founder of Soul Power. Hannah, it's so nice to meet you.
So nice to be here.
So from what I understand, you have the mission to create unplugged new tech that never dies.
Yes.
Talk about what we're dealing with here.
So every day when you move around, there's a lot of energy that's wasted to the surrounding environment in the form of heat and vibrations. And what we do is we capture some of that and convert it to electricity. So our first implementation of this concept is a portion of the shoe that generates power while you walk.
Okay. Is it like a little chip? It's like a battery?
It's actually kind of like, sort of like a mini car. It's got similar components. So we've got gears, links, clutches. A generator spins about 5,000 RPM. It basically converts the linear motion in your step to rotational, and then generates the power, stores it in a battery, and then charges a bunch of other sensors.
And you can fit that in a shoe?
Yes, with difficulty.
You invented this?
With a team, yes. And I had a wonderful co-founder and a group of really brilliant engineers from Carnegie Mellon to help out. So it was definitely a team effort. It's a difficult project, but it's a lot of fun to work on. We have a really cool design. Okay, so smart boots. That's what these are called in the real world right now. Talk about what are the real world applications of this technology. Yeah, so our first focus is on industrial workforces, and we think that we know that one of the main problems with adoption of connected technology in these different spaces is access to power. You have a 12-hour shift, you don't want to rely on different workers to have to plug in every night. So battery life has prevented integration of lots of technology into these sectors in the past. But we know is that, what we know is that data is kind of power. So if you can collect information about location, motion, status, you can give a lot of actionable insights to managers on these different spaces. So we're sort of combining these two concepts into what we're calling a smart boot, which is a self-sustained connected work boot, and initially focused on the construction industry, on firefighters, and on the military, which we can all sort of address with the same technology.
And I understand that you are actually getting support from the U.S. Army as well as the National Science Foundation. Why is that? What is their interest in your technology?
So the NSF has a really great program for entrepreneurs called the SBIR program. So they provide $150,000 in grants to do a research and development project that has commercialization potential. So we did a project that was really interesting on axial generators, which is sort of a nuanced permanent magnet generator design, actually popular in windmills. And the Army is interested in a network of wearable solutions to reduce backup battery weight.
You think about, and I've been with the military on the field, and you think about how much power they need and how great it would be to not have to plug in there.
Yeah, it's 20 pounds of backup batteries on a single day mission.
That they have to carry.
Those are some stats.
Yeah, and that's to carry in the field.
That's backup weight. That's to power a lot of different really critical sensors and equipment that they use every day.
So are you in the R&D stage for that kind of technology?
Yeah, we're definitely in the R&D stage. We're not going to be able to reduce the entirety of that weight, but we think being able to reduce some of it and then working into a network of other solutions, including solar panels and a lot of different technologies that are kind of more novel power sources, will be an interesting way to help.
So what is receiving this Toyota Mother of Invention grant going to mean for the future of Soul Power and for your mission?
Well, for a startup, cash flow is everything, so it helps tremendously on that front. But it's also just a really incredible honor to be here with all these other amazing women.
Right.
And it's incredible that Toyota's promoting women in tech. We definitely need more women in technology. So it's an honor to work with a company that is innovative and also cares about the same things.
That is a topic that comes up a lot, is how do we get more young girls interested in science and technology? I understand the window for you was science fiction.
Yeah, I was a nerd, and like unapologetically. So I think I didn't have a lot of the barriers that we hear about 13-year-old girls having. My mom was great, and all of my science teachers, many of them were women, so it was never really a question. And then I loved robotics. I did FIRST robotics in high school and ended up going to Carnegie Mellon to study mechanical engineering and robotics. So yeah, I've always just loved science and math, and that was the driver. It didn't really matter.
As an engineer, I'm curious how many ideas you actually have taken from the works of Asimov and other science fiction writers. Did you read something when you were 10 years old and thought, I'm going to invent that?
Well, I read I, Robot, which, you know, the Will Smith movie is great, but it doesn't do the book justice.
I haven't seen I, Robot, full disclosure.
You should. You definitely should. Yeah, I mean, I think the space industry, science fiction, is generally very inspirational. And to make those projects a success, it doesn't just take engineers, it takes people who are passionate about technology generally with a lot of different skill sets to make it work. So I think
are there skill sets that once you graduated with an engineering degree that you had to acquire to then run a company, and how did you do that?
Mentors. I have a really fantastic mentor. We used pretty much every Pittsburgh resource we had available to us, including incubators and accelerators. We're part of an accelerator program called Alpha Lab, and then we're alumni and residents in their sort of sister program, which we were guinea pigs for, that just focused on hardware. That's a very new concept, startups that have both a software and hardware focus.
In Pittsburgh, where you're based, yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of gave me a boot camp. We learned a little bit about it, but yeah, it's you know, you have to learn on the fly.
Are there any barriers as a woman to getting funding and to speaking to VCs and pitching? Have you noticed any? Because it seems like what you're saying is in your childhood you weren't that cognizant of being limited because you were a girl.
No, didn't even think about it.
Have you run up into any limits as a woman trying to pitch your company or your ideas?
So this question is always difficult because I think personally I haven't, and I really credit the Pittsburgh community a lot with that. They're incredibly inclusive and collaborative. But you know, then we hear about how difficult it is going to Silicon Valley. So you know, hopefully I won't run into anything when we start raising larger rounds. But I'm very confident that I'll have the support of the angels and the firms that are already with us to back me up. I think the only thing that does sometimes matter is age. So a lot of our customers, our potential customers, don't exactly look like me. In the construction industry, you know, many of them are older, male, and I think
so
they look at me a little bit like a kid sometimes. But what I've found is that if you're solving a compelling problem for a customer, they want smart people to solve it, and they will work with anybody to get a good solution out there.
I don't know, when I'm speaking to you, and I'm definitely older than you, what comes across is just you're an authority on the technical and business aspects of what you're doing, and that's enough to convince me.
Well, when you're talking to a customer, inherently you're trying to learn about their industry because you don't know anything about it. So we come into this, you know, not knowing how workers move across the site. That's what our technology is trying to address. So we're really coming in from the process of
asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, asking a lot of questions, trying to discover what the pain points of potential customers are, trying to discover you know, how we can help a soldier, what other applications of the technology there are. So that requires you to come in from a position of not knowing enough. You go in kind of saying, okay, teach me. I'm here to listen. So you do kind of come in not so authoritative.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. What are your ultimate hopes and dreams for your company, and what kind of social impact you want it to have?
Yeah, so I think that there are many areas that the technology can help with. There are many problems we can solve. Power is the driver of a lot of solutions, and you know, I hope one day we can do things like provide sandals and boots for charging phones in areas of the world that don't have a lot of access to electricity after a natural disaster or people without a grid. So that's definitely a future goal. Of course, we have to focus because we're, you know, a 6-person team, so. Not too much bandwidth, but our immediate goals are to start testing, to start growing, hire more people so that we can address all these other problems, and eventually I think the component that generates power and manages the power and, you know, charges all these sensors should be a standard in every shoe.
I have to say, with a woman like you at the helm, I can see all of that coming true.
I hope so.
Hannah Alexander, so nice to meet you. Thanks for stopping by the studio.
Thanks for having me.